The photo appeared in their shared Google Drive folder at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. Ray Talcott was reviewing traffic pattern data when the notification popped up on his laptop screen. New file uploaded. Beach_fun_23.jpg. He clicked it without thinking. His wife, Marla, smiled back at him from a hot tub, her arms wrapped around a man with salt and pepper hair and expensive sunglasses. The man's hand rested on her bare thigh. In the background, Lydia Kent raised a champagne glass, laughing at something off camera. Ray stared at the screen for exactly 43 seconds. He knew because the traffic signal timing report was still running in the background, counting down in neat digital increments. 43 seconds of his marriage dissolving into pixels. Then he closed the laptop and went to make coffee. He had work to do. 3 weeks earlier, Ray had been replacing a burnout signal controller on State Street when Marla called about the vacation. The intersection hummed around him. Cars rushing past, pedestrians checking their phones at crosswalks, the familiar rhythm of urban flow that he'd been managing for 8 years. "Lydia found this amazing resort in Tulum," Marla's voice crackled through his Bluetooth earpiece. "Girls' trip, I already booked it." Ray adjusted his hard hat and pulled another circuit board from his toolkit. "How much?" "Don't worry about it. I used the savings account." The savings account, their emergency fund. Ray had been adding to it religiously for 3 years, $25 at a time from his modest salary. But he didn't say anything. He never said anything when Marla made these decisions. "When do you leave?" "Tomorrow morning. I know it's sudden, but Lydia says I need to live a little. Stop being so—" She paused, searching for the word. "Predictable." Ray connected the new controller and watched the lights cycle through their sequence. Red, yellow, green, simple, logical, unlike his wife. "Have fun," he said. That night, Marla packed while Ray sat in his home office, updating signal maintenance schedules. She appeared in the doorway around 10, holding a suitcase and wearing a dress he'd never seen before. "You're not even going to ask where I'm going to be staying?" Ray looked up from his computer. Marla stood there in red silk that cost more than his weekly paycheck. Her brown hair freshly highlighted, makeup applied with precision. She was beautiful. She'd always been beautiful. Sometimes he wondered if that was the problem. "Tulum," he said. "You told me." "The resort name, Ray. Normal husbands ask for details. Casa Paraíso. All-inclusive. 5 stars on TripAdvisor." He'd looked it up the moment she mentioned it, the same way he researched everything, methodically, thoroughly. "You'll have a great time." Marla's expression shifted, disappointment flickering across her features. "Sometimes I think you don't care if I leave." Ray saved his document and closed the laptop. "I care." But as he said it, watching his wife of 6 years adjust her new dress in the hallway mirror, he realized he wasn't sure that was true anymore. The first day without Marla was peaceful. Ray woke at 5:30, made coffee, read the traffic incident reports, and headed to work. No complaints about his oatmeal being too bland. No sighs when he chose the news over morning television. No subtle comments about his shirt choices or the way he organized his tools. Benji Harlan called around noon. Ray was troubleshooting a signal timing issue on Highland Drive when his phone buzzed. "Your wife's blowing up Instagram," Benji said without preamble. "Thought you should know." Ray and Benji had worked together at the city's IT department before Ray transferred to traffic systems. Benji was the kind of guy who knew everyone's business before they did, partly because he managed the city's network security, and partly because he never slept. "She's on vacation." "Yeah, but she's posting like she's auditioning for a reality show. Champagne selfies, beach poses, the works, very liberation-themed." Ray balanced his phone between his shoulder and ear while he adjusted a signal timer. Meaning she's hashtagging stuff like "new me" and "finally free" and "life begins now." You know, the kind of posts divorced women make. She's not divorced. Not yet. That evening, Ray opened Instagram for the first time in months. Marla's account was a slideshow of indulgence. Poolside cocktails, designer sunglasses. Lydia Kent in every other photo, raising glasses and making peace signs like they were college freshmen instead of 30-something women with mortgages. The captions were worse than the photos. "Finally living my best life. #no regrets, #girls trip, #freedom. Some people settle, some people soar. Guess which one I am. #blessed, new chapter." When you realize you've been playing it safe for too long, #YOLO, #time to fly. Ray scrolled through 2 weeks of posts, noting the escalating themes. The early photos showed Marla and Lydia alone, standard vacation content. But by day 5, a third person had appeared in the background. A man with graying hair and an expensive watch, usually holding a drink and smiling at whoever was behind the camera. By day 10, he was sitting next to Marla at dinner. By day 12, his arm was around her waist. Ray took screenshots of everything. He couldn't have said why. Professional habit, maybe. When you worked with systems that failed, you learned to document everything. The next morning, Marla called while Ray was having breakfast. "How's everything at home?" she asked, but she sounded distracted. Music and laughter echoed in the background. "Fine. The signal at 9th and Main is acting up, but I'll get it sorted." That's great, Ray." A pause. "I've been thinking about us, about what I want from life." Ray set down his coffee cup. Here it was. "What do you want?" "More. I want more than this routine we've fallen into. More excitement, more passion, more everything." "I see." "Do you, though? Do you really see me, Ray? Because sometimes I feel like I'm invisible in my own house." Ray considered this. Did he see her? He saw her credit card bills. He saw her social media posts. He saw her clothes scattered across their bedroom floor and her dishes in the sink. He saw the way she looked at him sometimes, like he was a piece of furniture she was considering replacing. "I see you," he said. "I don't think you do. I don't think you see that I'm suffocating here." The line went quiet except for the background noise of wherever she was calling from. Ray could hear a man's voice, distant but familiar now from her recent posts. "I'll see you when you get back," Ray said. "Will you? Or will you see the version of me you want me to be?" After she hung up, Ray sat in his kitchen for a long time, staring at his phone. Then he called Benji. "I need a favor." Benji's apartment looked like a Best Buy had exploded inside a college dorm room. Computer monitors covered every available surface, cables snaked across the floor, and the air hummed with the sound of cooling fans. Ray had to step over a disassembled printer to reach the couch. "Coffee?" Benji offered, gesturing to a machine that looked like it belonged in a chemistry lab. "I'm good." Benji sat down at his main workstation, fingers already dancing across multiple keyboards. "So, what's the favor? And please tell me it's not asking me to fix your home Wi-Fi again." Ray pulled out his phone and showed Benji the Instagram posts. "I need to know who this guy is." Benji squinted at the screen, scrolling through the photos. "Your wife's vacation buddy?" "Yes." "And you want me to do what exactly? Facial recognition, background check, credit report?" "Whatever you can find, legally." Benji raised an eyebrow. "Define legally." "Information that's publicly available. Social media, business records, that kind of thing." Benji cracked his knuckles. "The fun kind of legal. Give me an hour." While Benji worked, Ray walked around the apartment studying the chaos. Benji lived like someone who expected to move at any moment. Everything valuable packed into milk crates and cardboard boxes. But the technology was top tier, professional grade. "Your wife's got expensive taste in men," Benji said after 40 minutes. "This guy's Instagram is a masterclass in fake wealth." He turned one of his monitors toward Ray. A profile page filled the screen, at Declan Granger _entrepreneur. The bio read, "Crypto visionary, startup founder, living the dream in paradise." Declan Granger, Ray read. "Real name's Kevin Banner, at least that's the name on the business registration for his so-called startup, which by the way doesn't actually exist." Benji opened another window showing a Florida business search result. Banner Solutions LLC, registered 6 months ago, 0 employees, no revenue reported. But look at this. He pulled up a news article from a Tampa newspaper. The headline read, "Local man accused of investment fraud skips town." Ray leaned closer. Kevin Banner's photo stared back at him from the screen. Younger, with darker hair, but unmistakably the same man who'd been buying his wife cocktails for the past week. 3 women came forward claiming he took their money for bogus investment opportunities, Benji continued. "Romance scam with a business twist. Wine and dine them, get them to trust you, then convince them to invest in your sure thing startup." "How much money?" "150 grand total, small time but effective." Charges were filed, but he disappeared before they could arrest him. That was 8 months ago. Ray stared at the screen. "So he's in Mexico running the same scam." "Looks like it. And your wife?" Benji pulled up Marla's recent posts. She's posting about amazing investment opportunities and life-changing decisions. Yesterday she hashtagged something about trusting your heart and your portfolio. Ray's stomach dropped. Their savings account. the money Marla had supposedly used for the vacation. "I need to check something," he said, pulling out his phone. The bank app loaded slowly, each second stretching like a held breath. When the balance appeared, Ray felt the world tilt slightly. $1,200. They'd had nearly $25,000 in savings 3 weeks ago. "Ray?" Benji's voice seemed to come from very far away. "You okay?" Ray looked up from his phone. "She gave him our money." "All of it?" "All of it." Benji swiveled in his chair, studying Ray's face. "What are you going to do?" Ray thought about this question for a long time. What was he going to do? The old Ray would have called Marla, demanded explanations, probably booked a flight to Mexico to drag her home. The old Ray would have trusted that this was all a misunderstanding, that his wife of 6 years hadn't actually stolen their life savings to fund a romance with a con artist. But the old Ray had looked at that photo in their shared drive folder and felt something break inside his chest. Something that had been cracking for months, maybe years, finally snapping clean. "I'm going to get it back," he said. "The money?" "Everything." Marla returned from Mexico on a Thursday afternoon, tanned and carrying new luggage. She'd texted Ray from the airport. "Landing at 3. Don't pick me up. Lydia's giving me a ride." Ray was working on a malfunctioning pedestrian signal when she got home. He heard her key in the lock, the sound of her bags hitting the floor, her heels clicking across the hardwood. He didn't look up from his paperwork when she appeared in the doorway of his office. "We need to talk," she said. Ray finished calculating the timing sequence for the signal repair and set down his pen. Marla stood in the doorway wearing a white sundress he'd never seen before, her skin darker than it had been in years. She looked relaxed, happy, guilty. "How was the trip?" he asked. "Amazing. Life-changing, actually." She sat down in the chair across from his desk, the one she usually avoided because it was surrounded by his work materials. "I met someone." "I know." She blinked. "You know?" "Instagram. You posted about it?" A flush crept up Marla's neck. "I didn't mean for you to find out that way." "How did you mean for me to find out?" I don't know. I thought we could talk about it like adults." "About what this means for us." Ray opened his laptop and pulled up their bank statement. He turned the screen toward her. "What does this mean for us?" Marla glanced at the balance and looked away quickly. "I can explain. $23,000, Marla. Our entire emergency fund. It's an investment. Declan has this startup, this amazing opportunity." "Kevin Banner." Marla's mouth opened and then closed. "What?" "His real name is Kevin Banner. He's wanted for fraud in Florida. 3 women, $150,000. Ray pulled up the news article on his phone and showed it to her. "Your investment opportunity is a criminal who's been running romance scams for at least 2 years. Marla stared at the phone screen, her face cycling through confusion, disbelief, and finally recognition. "That's not... He can't be... He is... No." She shook her head. "No, you're wrong. Declan is successful. He has businesses. He showed me his portfolio. Fake. He's taking me to meet his investors next month. They don't exist." "Stop." Marla stood up abruptly, knocking over the chair. "Just stop. You're jealous, I get it. But you don't get to destroy this for me." Ray looked at his wife. Really looked at her. She was 42 years old, intelligent, college-educated. She managed the books for a dental practice, dealt with insurance companies and tax codes every day. But she was standing in their home office, defending a man who'd stolen their life savings, because he'd made her feel special for 2 weeks. "I'm not trying to destroy anything," Ray said quietly. "I'm trying to save what's left." "There's nothing left to save." Marla's voice cracked. "Ray, I haven't been happy in years. Years. I wake up every morning in this house with this life, and I feel like I'm disappearing." "So you decided to steal our money and run away with a con artist. I decided to take a chance on something real, something that made me feel alive again." "He's using you." "Maybe, but at least he sees me. At least when I'm with him, I feel like I matter." Ray closed his laptop. "You matter to me." "No, I don't. I'm just part of your routine. Wake up, check traffic reports, fix signals, come home, repeat. I'm like another piece of equipment you maintain." The words hung in the air between them. Ray realized that Marla was crying, makeup smearing down her cheeks. She looked vulnerable and desperate and still beautiful, and he felt nothing. "I want a divorce," she said. "Okay." She blinked. "Okay? If that's what you want." "That's it? 6 years of marriage and you just say, okay?" Ray stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the traffic light at the corner of their street cycled through its pattern. Red, yellow, green, constant, reliable, predictable. What do you want me to say, Marla? That I'll fight for you? That I'll change everything about myself to make you happy? That I'll pretend you didn't just steal our future to fund an affair with a criminal? I want you to care. Ray turned around. I do care. That's the problem. That night, after Marla had gone to bed in the guest room, Ray sat in his office and made a list. Not a to-do list or a maintenance schedule, but something he'd never written before. A plan for revenge. It started simple. Document everything. Screenshot every social media post, every text message, every bank transaction. Print the news articles about Kevin Banner. Save the photos from Tulum. Build a file that told the complete story of his wife's betrayal. Then it got more complex. Ray wasn't a violent man. He'd never been in a fight, never owned a Colt, never even raised his voice in anger. But he was good at solving problems, and he was very good at understanding systems. People were systems too. They had patterns, weaknesses, points of failure. And Ray had something his wife's con artist boyfriend didn't: time, patience, and access to information. He called Benji at midnight. "You're not sleeping," he said when Benji answered. "Neither are you, apparently. How'd the conversation go?" "She wants a divorce." "I'm sorry, man." "Don't be. I want to hire you." A pause. "For what?" "Consulting work. I need to know everything about Kevin Banner, Lydia Kent, and anyone else connected to this situation. Finances, social media, business dealings, criminal history, everything." "Ray, what are you planning?" "Problem solving." Another pause. "And this is about more than just the money, isn't it?" Ray looked at the photo of Marla and Kevin still open on his laptop screen. She was laughing at something, her head thrown back, looking happier than she had in their entire marriage. "Yes," he said, "it's about more than the money." Over the next 2 weeks, Ray learned more about his wife's social circle than he had in 6 years of marriage. Benji was thorough, creative, and completely without ethical boundaries when it came to information gathering. Lydia Kent, Marla's best friend and vacation enabler, owned a boutique called Elevated Essentials in downtown Salt Lake City. High-end clothes, jewelry, and accessories for women who wanted to project success. The business was 3 years old and, according to its tax filings, consistently profitable. Too profitable, actually. Benji had found discrepancies between Lydia's reported income and her lifestyle expenses. The boutique claimed to make $60,000 a year, but Lydia drove a BMW, lived in a condo worth $500,000, and took international vacations quarterly. "She's running cash transactions under the table," Benji explained during one of their evening meetings. "Probably not reporting 30 to 40% of her actual income. Classic tax evasion." Proof? Her social media is a goldmine. She posts photos of cash deposits, expensive purchases, trips to Vegas with bags of money. It's like she wants to get caught. Ray studied the screenshots Benji had compiled. Lydia was everything Marla aspired to be. Loud, flashy, seemingly successful. She was also apparently an idiot. What about Banner? Still in Mexico, still running the same scam. But here's the interesting part. Benji pulled up a new document. He's not just targeting random women. He's specifically going after Americans who are traveling alone or in small groups. Resort staff are getting kickbacks for identifying potential marks. So Marla wasn't randomly chosen. Not even close. The resort probably flagged her as soon as she checked in. Married woman traveling without her husband, spending money freely. Perfect target. Ray felt a strange mix of anger and vindication. Marla had thought she was living out some romantic fantasy, but she'd been marked as prey from the moment she stepped off the plane. "There's more," Benji continued. "Banner's been using dating apps under multiple fake names. Same photos, different identities. I found profiles in Miami, Austin, and Phoenix. He's got this down to a science." "Current location?" "Still in Tulum, but he's getting ready to move. Posted some stuff about new opportunities and fresh starts. My guess is he's planning to disappear with whatever money he's collected, probably within the next month." Ray leaned back in his chair. "So we need to move fast." "We? I'm going to need your help with this." Benji studied Ray's face. "You know, I've known you for 5 years, and I've never seen you like this." "Like what?" "Focused. Usually you're just there, fixing things, solving problems, keeping everything running. But this is different. This is personal." Ray nodded. "This is personal." The first phase of Ray's plan was psychological. If Marla wanted to feel like she was living an exciting, independent life, he was going to give her exactly that. Complete independence. He started small. Stopped doing her laundry. Stopped buying groceries she liked. Stopped asking about her day or commenting on her social media posts. When she tried to start conversations about their relationship status or living arrangements, he was polite but detached. "We're getting divorced," he'd say. "You should probably start figuring out your own finances." The comment about finances always made her uncomfortable. She'd been texting with Kevin constantly since returning from Mexico, and Ray had noticed her checking their bank balance obsessively. She'd realized the money was gone, but she was still hoping it was somehow an investment that would pay off. Ray knew better. Benji had been monitoring Kevin's activities, and the con artist was already grooming his next sufferer, a recently divorced teacher from Phoenix who was planning a vacation to Cancun. 2 weeks after Marla's return, Ray implemented phase 2 of his plan. He called in sick to work and spent the day at the courthouse filing for divorce. Not just any divorce, but one that included a detailed financial affidavit listing their assets, debts, and recent financial transactions, including the $23,000 Marla had transferred to Kevin Banner's business account. The papers were served while Marla was at work. Ray was fixing a signal controller on the other side of town when his phone buzzed with a text from her. "What the hell is this?" He didn't respond immediately. Let her stew. Let her call Lydia and panic. Let her realize that her quiet, predictable husband had just made a very unpredictable move. That evening, Marla was waiting for him when he got home. She was sitting at their kitchen table with the divorce papers spread out in front of her face red and blotchy from crying. "You can't do this," she said. Ray set down his toolbox and poured himself a glass of water. "I can, actually. It's called no-fault divorce. Very common. The financial disclosure. You listed the Mexico money as theft. Unauthorized transfer of marital assets, that's the legal term. I'm your wife. I had every right to use that money. For a vacation, maybe, not to give to your boyfriend's fake business." Marla slammed her hand on the table. "How do you know it's fake? Have you even talked to Declan? Have you looked at his business plan?" Ray sat down across from her. "Kevin Banner is wanted for fraud in 3 states. His business doesn't exist. The portfolio he showed you is fabricated. The investors he promised to introduce you to don't exist. You keep saying that, but you don't know." Ray pulled out his phone and showed her Kevin's dating profile from Phoenix. Same photos, different name. Michael Davidson, entrepreneur and crypto consultant. Sound familiar? Marla's face went pale. She grabbed the phone and scrolled through the profile. Same bio, same investment pitch, same photos of resort life in Mexico. "This doesn't mean anything," she said, but her voice was shaking. "There are 6 more profiles. Different cities, different names, same scam." Ray took back his phone and showed her the news articles Benji had found. Not just the Florida fraud case, but similar stories from Texas and Nevada. Kevin Banner, or whatever his real name was, had been running variations of this scam for at least 4 years. "He loves me," Marla whispered. "He loves your money." "No." She stood up abruptly. "You're wrong. You don't know him." "I know he stole our life savings. It's an investment." Ray looked at his wife, really looked at her. She was intelligent, capable, experienced, but she was also desperate to believe that someone found her exciting enough to build a life around, desperate enough to ignore obvious red flags. "Call him," Ray said. "What?" "Call Kevin, right now. Ask him when you're going to see a return on your investment." Marla's hand moved toward her phone, then stopped. "I don't need to prove anything to you. You're not proving anything to me. You're proving it to yourself." She stared at him for a long moment, then picked up her phone. Ray watched her scroll through her contacts, find Kevin's number, hesitate. The phone rang 4 times before going to voicemail. Kevin's voice was smooth, confident. "You've reached Declan Granger. I'm probably closing a deal or living my best life. Leave a message and I'll get back to you." Marla didn't leave a message. She hung up and immediately called again. Same result. "He's probably busy," she said. "Try texting." Marla's fingers flew across her phone screen. Ray couldn't see what she was writing, but he could see her face growing more desperate with each unanswered message. After 15 minutes, she threw the phone on the table. "This doesn't prove anything. It proves he's not answering your calls. He's in a different time zone. Mexico is 2 hours behind us. It's 8 o'clock there." Marla picked up the divorce papers and waved them at him. "This is revenge. You're trying to humiliate me." "I'm trying to protect what's left of our assets." "Our assets? You mean your assets? You've never let me make any real decisions about money." Ray felt something cold settle in his stomach. "I've never let you? You act like every purchase I make is some kind of crisis. New clothes, dinners out, vacations. You make me feel guilty for wanting anything. I make you feel guilty for spending money we don't have on things we don't need. See? Right there. You decide what we need. Ray stood up and walked to the kitchen window. Outside, the traffic light cycled through its pattern. Reliable, predictable. Everything Marla claimed to hate about their life. You're right, he said finally. Marla blinked. What? You're right. I do control the money. I do make those decisions. He turned around to face her. Because when you make financial decisions, you give $23,000 to con artists. The words hit her like a physical blow. She actually stepped backward, her face crumpling. I hate you, she whispered. I know. I hate this house, this life, this version of myself that you've created. I know. I hate that you're probably right about Declan, and I hate that you're going to be smug about it. Ray looked at his wife, saw the pain and frustration and desperate unhappiness in her eyes, and felt the last piece of his love for her quietly die. I'm not going to be smug, he said. I'm going to be thorough. Phase 3 of Ray's plan required patience and precision. Over the next month, while Marla tried unsuccessfully to contact Kevin and Lydia ranted about the unfairness of divorce proceedings, Ray systematically documented everything. Bank records showing the unauthorized transfer, screenshots of Kevin's multiple dating profiles, evidence of Lydia's tax evasion, photos and text messages from the Mexico trip, a complete timeline of the affair and the fraud, but documentation was just the foundation. Ray's real goal was destruction, and destruction required strategy. He started with Lydia. Benji had been monitoring her social media accounts, and Lydia's need for attention was about to become a serious liability. She'd been posting photos of cash deposits, expensive purchases, and business trips that didn't match her reported income. More importantly, she'd been posting photos of tax documents, apparently thinking it made her look successful and professional. She literally photographed her fraudulent tax returns and put them on Instagram, Benji said, scrolling through Lydia's posts. Look at this one. Business owner life. Keeping the IRS happy. And she's holding up a form that shows she claimed $30,000 in business expenses for a trip to Paris. Ray studied the screenshot. That's not legitimate. Not even close. She wrote off the entire trip as a business expense, but her posts show she was there with her boyfriend, shopping and going to museums. Zero business activities, yeah. Can you compile all of this into a report? Already did. Benji handed Ray a thick folder. 2 years of social media posts cross-referenced with her tax filings. She's been evading taxes on at least $100,000 in unreported income. Ray flipped through the report. It was thorough, professional, and absolutely damning. This is good work. Thanks. What are you going to do with it? I'm going to give it to the IRS. Benji raised an eyebrow. Anonymous tip? Anonymous tip? You know they pay rewards for information that leads to successful prosecutions, right? 10 to 30% of the recovered taxes. Ray hadn't known that, but it was useful information. If Lydia owed back taxes on $100,000 in unreported income, plus penalties and interest, Ray could be looking at a significant reward, money that could help offset what Kevin had stolen from their savings. One more thing, Ray said. I need you to help me create a fake identity. For what? I'm going to Mexico. Creating a convincing fake identity turned out to be easier than Ray had expected. Not because it was legal or simple, but because Kevin Banner had been so careless with his own identity theft that he'd left a blueprint for how to do it. Benji didn't actually help Ray break any laws. Instead, he showed Ray how Kevin had operated. Fake business cards, fake social media profiles, fake email addresses. All technically legal as long as you weren't using them to commit fraud. Ray wasn't planning to commit fraud. He was planning to commit justice. The fake identity was simple but effective. Thomas Blake, independent financial consultant, recently divorced, taking some time to travel and explore investment opportunities. Benji created a professional-looking website, LinkedIn profile, and business cards. They even set up a phone number and email address. You're really going to Mexico? Benji asked as they finalized the fake documents. I'm going to Mexico. To do what exactly? Confront this guy? Knock him up? Get your money back? Ray considered the question. What was he going to do in Mexico? He wasn't a violent person. He wasn't a criminal. He was a traffic signal technician from Salt Lake City who had never been in a real fight in his life. But he was also a man who had spent his entire adult life fixing things that were broken. And his marriage wasn't the only thing that needed repair. I'm going to solve a problem, Ray said. Ray flew to Cancun on a Tuesday morning in late October. He'd told his supervisor that he needed time off to deal with his divorce, which was technically true. He'd told Marla that he was going to visit his brother in Phoenix, which was technically false. She hadn't seemed to care either way. The flight was Ray's first time out of the country. He'd suggested international travel to Marla several times over the years, but she'd always said they couldn't afford it. Now he was sitting in economy class, flying to Mexico to confront the man she'd given their vacation fund to instead. Tulum was exactly what Ray had expected. Beautiful, expensive, and full of Americans who were trying to escape whatever they were running from back home. The resort where Marla had stayed was a fortress of luxury. All white walls and infinity pools and staff members who spoke English with perfect customer service smiles. Ray didn't stay at the resort. He'd booked a modest hotel in town, close enough to observe but far enough away to avoid attention. Thomas Blake was supposed to be a man of modest means, after all. Finding Kevin was surprisingly easy. The man had no concept of operational security. His Instagram posts were geotagged, his schedule was predictable, and his favorite bar was a tourist trap called Paradise Found that served overpriced cocktails to Americans who wanted to feel like they were living dangerously. Ray spent 3 days watching Kevin work. The man was good at what he did, Ray had to admit. He was charming, confident, and completely convincing. He'd approach women who were traveling alone or in small groups, buy them drinks, ask thoughtful questions about their lives and dreams. Within hours, he'd have them laughing and sharing personal stories. Within days, he'd have them talking about investments and opportunities. Ray watched Kevin seduce a teacher from Phoenix, the same woman Benji had identified as his next target. Her name was Sandra, she was recently divorced, and she was clearly desperate for someone to make her feel special. Ray felt a stab of recognition watching Kevin manipulate her the same way he'd manipulated Marla. On Thursday evening, Ray introduced himself. He waited until Kevin was alone at the bar, between targets. The teacher had gone back to her hotel, and Kevin was nursing a whiskey while scrolling through his phone, probably looking for his next sufferer. Declan Granger? Ray approached the bar casually, like he'd just recognized an old friend. Kevin looked up, wariness flickering across his features. Do I know you? Thomas Blake. Ray extended his hand with a confident smile. I've been following your work online. Very impressive business model. Kevin's expression shifted from wariness to interest. He shook Ray's hand with the practiced firmness of a professional salesman. What kind of work do you think I do? Investment consulting, cryptocurrency ventures, the kind of opportunities that most people are too conservative to pursue. Ray signaled the bartender. Buy you a drink? Sure. Kevin was studying Ray's face, trying to place him. How exactly do you know about my business? Ray had practiced this conversation dozens of times during the flight. The key was to give Kevin just enough information to seem legitimate while staying vague enough to avoid obvious lies. A mutual friend mentioned you, Marla Talcott. She spoke very highly of your startup opportunities. Kevin's face lit up with recognition and pride. Marla, beautiful woman, very smart investor. How do you know her? Business circles in Salt Lake City. She mentioned she'd made some significant investments with you. Said you were taking her to meet your partners next month. That's right. Kevin leaned forward, warming to his favorite subject. We're always looking for serious investors. People who understand that the biggest returns come with the biggest risks. Ray nodded thoughtfully. What kind of returns are we talking about? Depends on the investment level. For someone like Marla, who came in at $25,000, we're projecting 300 to 400% returns within the first year. $25,000. Kevin thought he'd gotten more money than he actually had. Ray filed that information away and kept his expression neutral. That's impressive. What's the minimum investment? For the right investor, someone with Marla's vision? We could start as low as $50,000. Ray nearly choked on his drink. Kevin was trying to upsell him for twice what he'd stolen from Ray's savings account. The man's greed was breathtaking. I'd need to see some documentation, of course. Business plans, financial projections, that sort of thing. Of course. Kevin pulled out his phone. Why don't I give you my card and we can set up a proper meeting? Are you staying nearby? Hotel in town. I prefer to keep a low profile when I'm evaluating opportunities. Kevin handed Ray a business card. Declan Granger, CEO, Paradise Ventures. The card was well-designed, professional-looking. Completely fake, of course. I have to ask, Ray said casually. How did you and Marla meet? Business conference? Actually, we met here. She was on vacation with a friend, looking to break out of her routine, try something new. Sometimes the best business opportunities come from personal connections. She mentioned she was married. Kevin's smile faltered slightly. Yes, unhappily. Her husband sounds like a real piece of work. Control freak, no vision, no ambition. The kind of man who keeps his wife trapped in a small life. Ray nodded sympathetically. Those situations can be complicated. Not really. When someone is ready to change their life, the complications work themselves out. Ray finished his drink and stood up. Well, I should let you get back to your evening. I'll be in touch about the investment opportunity. Looking forward to it. Kevin shook his hand again. Thomas, right? Thomas Blake? That's right. As Ray walked away from the bar, he felt a strange sense of satisfaction. Kevin Banner was everything Ray had expected. Arrogant, greedy, and completely convinced of his own cleverness. He was also about to learn that some problems couldn't be solved with charm and fake business cards. The next morning, Ray put the second phase of his Mexico plan into action. He'd spent months learning everything he could about Kevin Banner, and he'd discovered something interesting. The man was currently living on borrowed time in more ways than one. Kevin's tourist visa was expired. He'd been in Mexico for over 6 months, well beyond the legal limit for Americans without proper documentation. He was also wanted by police in Florida, and there was an active warrant for his arrest. Ray made 2 phone calls from his hotel room. The first was to the local immigration office, reporting an American tourist who was overstaying his visa and running illegal business operations from a resort. The second was to the FBI's international tip line, reporting the location of a fugitive wanted for financial fraud. Then he went to breakfast and waited. Kevin was arrested at Paradise Found that evening. Ray watched from across the street as Mexican immigration officers and local police surrounded the bar. Kevin tried to run, actually pushing through the crowd of tourists and making it almost a block before 2 officers tackled him in the middle of the street. Ray felt no satisfaction watching Kevin get dragged away in handcuffs. No sense of victory or justice. Just the quiet pleasure of seeing a system work the way it was supposed to work. He flew back to Salt Lake City the next morning. Marla was waiting for him when he got home from the airport. She was sitting in the living room with her phone in her hands, her face pale and streaked with tears. Declan's been arrested, she said without looking up. Ray set down his suitcase. I'm sorry to hear that. No, you're not. She looked at him then, her eyes red and angry. You're not sorry at all. You're right, I'm not. Did you have something to do with this? Ray considered lying. It would be easy enough. Kevin had been a fugitive living illegally in Mexico. His arrest was inevitable, but Ray was tired of lying, tired of pretending to be someone he wasn't. Yes. Marla's face crumpled. How could you do that? How could you destroy someone's life like that? He destroyed his own life when he decided to steal money from people who trusted him. He didn't steal anything from me. I gave him that money willingly. You gave him money for a fake business. That's fraud. That's what he was arrested for. Marla stood up and began pacing around the room. You don't understand. You never understood. Declan made me feel alive. He made me feel like I could be someone different, someone better. He made you feel like a mark. Stop calling him that. Stop acting like you know anything about our relationship. Ray sat down on the couch and looked at his wife. She was still beautiful, still the woman he'd fallen in love with 8 years ago. But she was also a stranger, someone who had convinced herself that being conned was the same thing as being loved. Marla, he said gently, he had 6 different dating profiles, 6 different fake names. He was running the same scam on women in 4 different states. I don't believe you. Ray pulled out his phone and showed her the screenshots Benji had compiled. Dating profiles, news articles, police reports. A complete picture of Kevin Banner's criminal career. Marla looked at the evidence for a long time, scrolling through the photos and documents. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. Even if that's true, it doesn't change how I felt. It doesn't change the fact that for 2 weeks I was happy. Really, truly happy. Because you thought you were someone else. Because I was someone else. Someone exciting and spontaneous and worth pursuing. She looked up at him. Do you know what it's like to feel invisible in your own life? To feel like you're just going through the motions, day after day, waiting for something to happen? Ray thought about this question. Did he know what it felt like to be invisible? He was a city employee who fixed traffic signals. Most people drove past his work every day without thinking about it. His job was to be invisible, to keep systems running so smoothly that nobody noticed them. Yes, he said. I do know what that feels like. Then how can you be so calm about this? How can you just sit there like none of this matters? Ray looked around their living room, the couch they'd bought together 3 years ago, the coffee table Marla had insisted on, even though it was too expensive, the photos on the mantel showing their life together, vacations, holidays, anniversaries. Because I'm not invisible anymore, he said. The IRS audit of Lydia Kent's boutique began 2 weeks later. Ray received a call from a federal agent who explained that his anonymous tip had resulted in a full investigation into Elevated Essentials business practices. We'll need you to come in and provide a formal statement, the agent said. Your evidence package was very thorough. What kind of penalties is she looking at? If we can prove deliberate tax evasion on the scale you've documented, she could be facing criminal charges, plus back taxes, penalties, and interest. We're talking about a significant financial liability. Ray scheduled the appointment for the following week. He was looking forward to providing his formal statement. Lydia's arrest made the local news. Local business owner charged with tax evasion. The story included details about her boutique, her lifestyle, and the social media posts that had helped build the case against her. Marla called Ray that evening, crying hysterically. They arrested Lydia, the IRS, the police, everyone. She's facing 5 years in prison. I heard. You did this too, didn't you? This is your revenge. Ray was eating dinner alone at their kitchen table, reading a technical manual about new traffic signal technology. The manual was more interesting than this conversation. Lydia did this to herself when she decided to evade taxes. She was my best friend. She was the person who encouraged you to steal our money and cheat on our marriage. She was trying to help me be happy. She was trying to drag you down to her level. Marla was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was different, smaller. What happens now? Ray closed the manual and looked across the table at the empty chair where Marla used to sit. Now you figure out how to live with the choices you made. I mean with us. With the divorce? The divorce proceeds. You get half of what's left after we settle the debts. I get half. We sell the house and go our separate ways. What if I don't want to get divorced? Ray considered this question. What if Marla changed her mind? What if she wanted to try again, to rebuild their marriage, to forgive and forget and start over? It's too late for that, he said. People make mistakes, Ray. People change. We could try counseling, or you didn't make a mistake. You made a choice, a series of choices, and now you have to live with the consequences. Marla was crying again. I know I hurt you. I know I was wrong about Declan, about the money, about everything, but I was just trying to find myself. You found yourself. You're someone who steals from her husband to fund an affair with a criminal. You're someone who listens to friends who encourage you to destroy your marriage. You're someone who values excitement over loyalty. That's not who I am. It's exactly who you are. It's who you chose to be. Ray picked up his manual and started reading again. After a few minutes, he heard Marla hang up the phone. The final confrontation came 3 months later at the office of Ray's divorce attorney. Marla arrived with her own lawyer, a woman who specialized in helping wives get favorable settlements from controlling husbands. The attorney had clearly been expecting to face a different kind of man, someone who could be intimidated or manipulated into accepting blame for the marriage's failure. Instead, she got Ray, calm, prepared, and armed with documentation that made Marla's case impossible to defend. My client is willing to accept responsibility for her mistakes, Marla's attorney began, but she believes the financial disclosure is incomplete. There are questions about hidden assets, undisclosed income. Ray's attorney slid a folder across the table. Mr. Talcott's financial disclosure is complete and accurate. As you can see from the bank records, Mrs. Talcott withdrew $23,000 from their joint savings account and transferred it to Kevin Banner, who has since been convicted of fraud in federal court. Marla's attorney opened the folder and began reading. Her expression grew increasingly grim as she worked through the documents. There's also the matter of the IRS reward, Ray's attorney continued. Mr. Talcott received compensation for providing information that led to the successful prosecution of tax evasion charges against Lydia Kent. That money is considered separate property, acquired after the date of separation. How much? Marla asked, speaking for the first time since they'd sat down. $12,000, Ray said. 10% of the recovered taxes! Marla's face went white. You got paid for destroying my friend's life? I got paid for providing evidence of criminal activity. This is ridiculous, Marla's attorney interjected. My client is entitled to half of all marital assets. Your client is entitled to half of what remains after settling the debts she created, Ray's attorney said calmly. Which according to our calculations, amounts to approximately $14,000. The math was brutal but accurate. Their house had some equity, their retirement accounts had modest balances, and Ray's salary provided a baseline income. But Marla's theft of their savings, combined with the legal fees and debt settlement costs, had eliminated most of their shared wealth. 14,000? Marla stared at the settlement documents. That's all? Your actions have consequences, Mrs. Talcott, Ray's attorney said. Financial and otherwise. Marla looked across the table at Ray. You planned this. All of it. You wanted me to lose everything. Ray met her eyes. I wanted you to face the consequences of your choices. My choices? What about your choices? What about the way you treated me for 6 years? What about your refusal to ever try anything new or exciting or spontaneous? What about it? Doesn't that count for anything? Doesn't my unhappiness matter? Ray considered this question. Did Marla's unhappiness matter? Had he been a bad husband? Had his quiet, steady approach to life somehow driven her to steal their money and run away with a con artist? Your unhappiness mattered, he said finally, but it didn't give you the right to destroy our marriage and steal our future. I didn't steal anything. You took $23,000 from our joint account without my knowledge or permission and gave it to a criminal. In legal terms, that's theft. Marla's attorney leaned forward. My client was still legally married. She had every right to access joint marital funds. For legitimate marital expenses, Ray's attorney replied. Not to fund an extramarital affair. The room went quiet. Marla was crying again, but silently this time. Her attorney was reviewing the settlement documents, probably calculating how much money she was going to make from this disaster. I need to talk to my client privately, Marla's attorney said. Ray and his attorney stepped outside. The hallway was quiet, professional, sterile. Ray felt like he was in a hospital waiting room, waiting for news about whether someone was going to live or die. She's going to take the settlement, Ray's attorney said. She doesn't have any choice. I know. You did your homework on this case. Very thorough documentation. I'm good at solving problems. They waited 20 minutes before Marla's attorney called them back in. Marla had signed the papers. Her face was red and puffy, but she was done crying. There's one more thing, she said as they prepared to leave. I want to know why you stayed married to me if you hated me so much. Ray looked at her across the table one last time. I didn't hate you. I loved you. But I didn't know who you really were until you showed me. And who am I, Ray? In your opinion? Ray thought about the question. Who was Marla Talcott? She was intelligent but gullible, beautiful but vain, capable but irresponsible. She was someone who wanted to be special but wasn't willing to do the work required to become special. You're someone who had everything she needed, but wanted more than she deserved, he said. And now you have exactly what you've earned. Ray moved out of their house the following week. He'd found a small apartment near downtown Salt Lake City, close to his work and far from the suburban life he'd shared with Marla. The apartment was sparse, functional, efficient. Everything had a purpose. Nothing was decorative. He liked it. Benji helped him move the last of his belongings on a Saturday afternoon. They loaded Ray's tools, his technical manuals, and his computer equipment into Benji's pickup truck. Everything that had defined Ray's life for the past 8 years fit into 6 boxes in a toolbox. You could get a bigger place, Benji said as they carried the last box up to Ray's new apartment. The IRS reward money plus your half of the house sale. You've got options? Ray looked around the apartment. 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, a kitchen with basic appliances, a living room just big enough for a couch and a desk. It was perfect. I like it here. It's kind of depressing, man. Very bachelor pad meets witness protection program. Ray opened one of the boxes and began organizing his technical manuals on a bookshelf. It's honest. What does that mean? It's exactly what it appears to be. No pretense. No attempts to be something it's not. Benji sat down on Ray's new couch and opened a beer. You know, I've been thinking about this whole situation. What you did to your wife, to her friend, to the con artist. It was pretty ruthless. It was justice. Was it? Or was it revenge? Ray considered the question. What was the difference between justice and revenge? Justice was systematic, impartial, focused on consequences rather than punishment. Revenge was personal, emotional, focused on causing pain rather than solving problems. Both, he said finally. And you're okay with that? Ray finished organizing his manuals and moved on to the next box. his computer equipment, cables, and technical tools. Everything he needed to do his job, solve problems, keep systems running. I'm okay with solving problems, he said. Benji finished his beer and stood up. Well, you definitely solved this one. Your ex-wife is broke, her friend is in prison, and her boyfriend is being extradited to Florida. Problem solved. Yes. What's next? Ray plugged in his computer and powered it up. The screen displayed his desktop. Clean, organized, functional. No family photos, no personal documents, just the tools he needed to do his work. Back to work, he said. 6 months later, Ray received a text message from an unknown number. I know what you did. Ray was installing a new traffic signal controller on Main Street when the message arrived. He read it twice, then deleted it and went back to work. The next day, another message. Kevin told me everything before they extradited him. Ray didn't respond. Whoever was sending the messages would either escalate or give up. If they escalated, he'd deal with the problem. If they gave up, the problem would solve itself. On the third day, the person identified themselves. This is Sandra Mitchell. We need to talk, Sandra Mitchell, the teacher from Phoenix, Kevin's next sufferer before Ray had him arrested. Ray remembered watching Kevin seduce her at Paradise Found, using the same techniques he'd used on Marla. Ray texted back, "What do you want?" "To thank you." Ray stared at his phone for a long moment. That wasn't what he'd expected. Thank me for what? For saving me from making the biggest mistake of my life. Kevin was going to take everything I had, my savings, my house, my retirement, everything. Ray was surprised to learn that Kevin had confessed to his other crimes while in custody. Apparently, facing extradition to Florida had motivated him to come clean about his various scams, probably hoping for some kind of plea deal. How did you get my number? Ray texted. Kevin had Thomas Blake's contact information. I did some research, figured out who you really were. I'm a teacher. I'm good at research. Ray considered this development. Sandra Mitchell knew his real identity, knew what he'd done in Mexico, and could potentially cause problems for him. But she was thanking him rather than threatening him. What exactly did Kevin tell you? That you tracked him down, turned him into the authorities, got him arrested. He said you were married to one of his sufferers, former wife. I'm sorry, that must have been devastating. Ray thought about whether Kevin's theft of their money had been devastating. Financially, yes. The loss of their savings had complicated the divorce and forced him to start over in many ways. But emotionally? It was educational, he replied. Can we meet? I'd like to buy you a drink, or coffee, whatever you prefer. Ray considered the invitation. Sandra Mitchell was a stranger who knew potentially dangerous information about his activities. Meeting her was risky, but she was also someone who had been targeted by the same criminal who had destroyed Ray's marriage, someone who understood what it felt like to be marked as prey. Saturday afternoon, Squatter's Pub downtown. 2 o'clock. I'll be there. And Ray, thank you again. You saved my life. Sandra Mitchell was not what Ray had expected. She was in her early 40s with graying brown hair and intelligent eyes. She wore jeans and a sweater, no makeup, no jewelry. She looked like someone who had given up trying to impress people and was comfortable with who she was. Ray found her at a corner table, reading a book and nursing a coffee. She looked up when he approached, smiled, and stood to shake his hand. Ray Talcott? That's right. Sandra Mitchell, thank you for coming. They sat down and ordered drinks. Ray got coffee, Sandra ordered another. The pub was quiet on Saturday afternoon, mostly empty except for a few people watching college football on the televisions. So, Sandra said, I have to ask, how did you figure out what Kevin was doing? Ray explained the basic timeline. Marla's vacation, the suspicious social media posts, the photo that appeared in their shared drive folder. Sandra listened without interrupting, occasionally nodding or shaking her head. He showed me the same portfolio, she said when Ray finished. The same fake business plan, even the same photos of his supposedly successful investments. How much did he ask you for? $50,000 to start, but he was working up to more. He had this whole story about expanding into new markets, bringing in additional investors. I think he was planning to take me for everything I had. Probably. Sandra stared into her coffee cup. I almost did it. I was literally at the bank, ready to withdraw my entire retirement account. The only thing that stopped me was Kevin getting arrested. What made you trust him? Honestly, he made me feel special. I'm 43, recently divorced, teaching middle school math in Phoenix. Not exactly living an exciting life. Then this handsome, successful man starts paying attention to me, telling me I'm beautiful and intelligent and deserve better than I've settled for. Ray nodded. It was the same story Marla had told him. Kevin specialized in finding women who felt invisible and making them feel seen. The thing is, Sandra continued, he wasn't entirely wrong. I was settling. My marriage was boring, my job is routine, my life is predictable. I wanted something more, but not at the cost of everything you'd worked for. Exactly. Kevin offered me excitement, but the price was financial end. They sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes, watching the football game on the nearest television. Ray found himself relaxing in Sandra's presence. She was easy to talk to, direct without being aggressive, intelligent without being pretentious. "Can I ask you something personal?" Sandra said. "Go ahead. Do you regret what you did? The revenge, I mean?" Ray considered the question. Did he regret destroying Marla's affair, exposing Lydia's tax evasion, or getting Kevin arrested? Did he regret the systematic way he'd dismantled the network of people who had betrayed him? No, he said. I regret that it was necessary. But not the actions themselves. Not the actions themselves. Sandra nodded approvingly. Good. You shouldn't regret protecting yourself and other people from criminals. Is that what I did? That's exactly what you did. Kevin would have kept running his scam until someone stopped him. You stopped him. Ray finished his coffee and signaled for the check. What happens now? With your life, I mean. I'm selling my house in Phoenix and moving here, Salt Lake City. I got a teaching job at a middle school in Murray. Ray was surprised. Why here? Because this is where Kevin's scam fell apart. This is where someone finally stood up to him and won. I figure if this city can produce someone like you, it might be a good place to start over. Someone like me? Someone who solves problems instead of complaining about them. Someone who takes action instead of hoping things will get better on their own. Ray paid the check, and they walked outside together. The afternoon was cool and clear, with the mountains visible in the distance. Salt Lake City spread out around them, a grid of streets and signals and systems that worked because people like Ray kept them working. Would you like to have dinner sometime? Sandra asked. Ray looked at her. Really looked at her. She was attractive in a quiet way, intelligent, direct. She understood what it felt like to be targeted by someone who saw her as prey rather than a person. She also understood what it felt like to want more from life without being willing to destroy everything to get it. Yes, he said, I'd like that. They exchanged phone numbers and agreed to meet the following weekend. As Ray walked back to his apartment, he felt something he hadn't experienced in months: optimism. The divorce was finalized on a Wednesday morning in January. Ray signed the papers in his attorney's office, officially ending his marriage to Marla Talcott. He felt nothing except relief that the process was finally complete. His attorney handed him copies of the final settlement documents. Congratulations, Mr. Talcott. You're officially a free man. Ray folded the papers and put them in his briefcase. Thank you. Any plans for celebrating? Ray thought about this question. How did someone celebrate the end of a marriage? Drinks with friends? A vacation? A party? I'm going back to work, he said. That afternoon, Ray was called to fix a malfunctioning signal at the intersection where he'd first learned about Marla's vacation plans. The same corner where he'd been working when she called to tell him about Tulum and Lydia and her need to live a little. Ray parked his truck and began diagnosing the problem. The signal was stuck on red in all directions, creating a four-way standoff. Cars were backed up in every direction, but nobody was honking. They were all waiting patiently for someone to fix the system. The problem was simple: a blown fuse in the main controller. Ray replaced it in less than 10 minutes, and the intersection returned to its normal rhythm. Red, yellow, green, order restored. As Ray packed up his tools, his phone buzzed with a text from Sandra. How did the hearing go? It's done, Ray replied. Congratulations. Still on for dinner tomorrow? Yes. I'm looking forward to it. Ray put his phone away and climbed back into his truck. Tomorrow, he would have dinner with Sandra Mitchell, a woman who understood both the dangers of trusting the wrong person and the value of having someone solve your problems instead of creating them. But today, he had work to do. Signals to maintain, systems to repair, order to restore in a world that was constantly breaking down. Ray drove to his next assignment, a pedestrian signal that had been reported as non-functional. As he pulled up to the intersection, he could see the problem immediately. The walk sign was dark, leaving pedestrians stranded on both sides of the street. Simple problem. Simple solution. Ray stepped out of his truck, opened his toolbox, and got to work.